All right, welcome back to News Centre. Thank you so much for staying with us. We want to get straight into our conversation. Remember, it's all to do with the Mao evictions that really have taken a political twist, with the Jubilee Party expressing displeasure at some of the remarks made by a faction of its members, including Senate Minority Leader Kipchumba Murkomen. The party has taken issue with Murkomen's sentiments, perceived to go against the official government position of Mao evictions, with some quarters intimating that there was a plot to oust him from his position. Allegations the party leadership has since denied. And on News Centre this morning, that's what we're looking at, the political intrigues surrounding the Mao evictions and so much more, of course, including the families that have been affected by this particular event. We now want to have a discussion with Daniel Juma. He is the Executive Director of the Kenya chapter for the Global Peace Foundation. Thank you for your time, Daniel. It's great to see you.
Good to see you again.
But of course, it's not some good news. Just looking at the pictures, really, of what is happening, you know, in the Mao. First of all, I'd like to get your assessment of everything that is happening there.
Thank you, Betty. You know, looking at what has been going on in the Mao, of course, recently, but since this whole thing started, it is very sad that that this is going on. This seems to go on and on and on. And the Mao issue, which, you know, from where I sit, is largely an environmental issue, has been used as a political tool. And politicians keep using it, you know, to be able to drive emotions and take advantage, take political capital out of it without, you know, looking for a sustainable solution. So from where I sit and, you know, talking to various partners, I think it is time that we get a sustainable solution, one that will safeguard our environment, the ecosystem. This is a must, because 3.4 million livelihoods is at risk. But at the same time, even as we do this, the government must plan, you know, must be humane about the way they go about evicting these people. It is very sad to see small children, you know, being, you know, staying out in the cold. You know, I was watching some of those pictures, and it's very, very sad. So I think it's something that we need to find a balance. How do we? I know it's a must. We need to do the evictions. We need to, but as we do the evictions, we must resettle these people. These are our children. These are our brothers and sisters.
Right. Interesting that you say that. And also, you know, you quite correctly mentioned that this has been an issue that keeps recurring. Almost like every election cycle, you have the same issues coming up. And so with that in mind, do you think that these latest efforts are really genuine and are headed somewhere?
I think the latest efforts, you know, appear to me, you know, that they're genuine. Because government policy, government is finally deciding that this has to be done. You have seen previous governments, you know, they have basically spoken from both sides of their mouths, saying, okay, we will evict them, or other side saying, you know, we will not. And I was just seeing from one of the MP there, Mr. Nyamitra, he was saying that, of course, the deputy president must decide. Because whenever he goes to the Maasai area, he says, you know, the evictions will take place. And whenever it comes to the Kalenjin side, he says, no, you will stay. I think the deputy president especially, you know, must lead from the front. And this calls for intellectual honesty. You cannot politicize this issue. You may postpone the Mao issue, you know, for political mileage. But let's say, even if the deputy president he becomes president, he will have to deal with this issue squarely, you know, because the kind of damage, the kind of damage to the ecosystem, this is going to be worse. It's going to be bigger than any political capital that you can get from it. You can see what happened. You know, the former prime minister, he actually, you know, lost the support of the Kalenjin because of the Mao issue. You know, but he was steadfast. I think he never reneged on the issue because, as far as he was concerned, the livelihoods of millions were at risk. So it's better to lose the politics, but you safeguard the future of the generation.
Interesting.
Yes.
That's a question whether, the politicians would be willing to make that kind of a sacrifice. We just want to take a look at some of the sentiments, really, from different political figures. We want to start now with Mbadi. Let's just listen to what he had to say about this last night on Checkpoint.
We need political analysts to really analyze and break down what Senator Kipchumba Murkomen said in Mau. Actually, if I were him, I think there is nothing wrong with making mistakes. He would just own up and say, I made a mistake, I threw tantrums, I acted out of anger, I don't know provoked by who or what, and just tell Kenyans, I made a mistake. First, when you refer to people who have joined government recently through the window, and they wakashikana na wakora wengine and did an MOU. Which MOU are we aware of that was made recently? The MOU was signed by two individuals, Raila Odinga, Uhuru Kenyatta. It was not even a group of people. It was not even between political parties. And therefore, what the senator was referring to is very simple. It's in black and white. He's referring to Raila Odinga and referring to Uhuru Kenyatta. In fact, the people who came through the window, according to him, is Raila Odinga. It's not even people. It's an individual. And the Wakora Walishikana now is none other than Uhuru Kenyatta. And therefore, I just want to plead with my brother that at times when you are a leader at such a level and you are annoyed, it is better to take your time off a bit. And this thing, to me, is clearly not the issue of Mau. It is not the plight of the evictees, because if it were, then the senator would have not brought in the issue of the handshake. He would have not brought in the issue of the MOU. He would have not brought up the issue of building bridges and the 9 MOU points, because these other issues are fundamental to the people of Kenya. We also know that there are human rights issues around the eviction from the Mau forest that needs to be addressed. But that is not the right way to do it.
All right, that is Minority Leader John Mbadi there yesterday on Checkpoint speaking to Sophia Wanune. It was quite a heated debate there with Kipchumba Murkomen, really on the same issue to do with the Mau evictions. Coming back to you, Daniel, I mean, there's a lot of politics already, in this particular issue. But then at the center of it all are Kenyans who continue to suffer. Like you mentioned, their children. There are about 15 schools that have so far been closed. So what really is the solution going forward? How do you make that balance between, of course, reclaiming, the forest, which is the largest water tower, and also just looking at the people who are really in there, living there?
I think the CS, the new CS, Kariako Tobiko, who is in charge of environment, when he was appointed, he appointed a task force, to be able to look at that in what you call a rapid response, committee, to be able to address that issue. And already he has a report that came from that. I think it is good for us as Kenyans, to not politicize everything. If we are able to leave this issue, for the CS, the Minister of Environment, to actually deal with it squarely, and then the report that he received from the task force to be implemented, I think we are at a better place. But it's very sad that politicians are again interfering with this. That, even if you remember, the ages during the Raila time, the CS that time was Michuki. I think if Michuki dealt with that issue, and was left to deal with it without politicians wading into it, I think we would have dealt with it much better than this. So I think we need the task force, the report from the task force should be implemented. But again, the government officials, the government must be brave. This is not just this is an environmental issue. This is a global issue. If we do not deal with it now, we will wait to deal with it years from now, and the damage will have been. Look at it. Look, right. This period has been very cold, right? Global warming is real. People think it's a joke, but global warming is real. If we don't fix it now, we'll be staring at a bigger issue in years to come.
Right. And talking about the bigger issue, what really is at stake, with, the situation as is?
The situation as I mentioned earlier, we have 3.4 million people.
Yes.
That risk. There's going to be famine. The water is going to be an issue. So livelihoods will be lost. The areas surrounding, the Mau, that water, serves the area, yes. Including the Mara, the Maasais. Yes. So, it is as big as you can imagine, and maybe we don't believe, but I can tell you that nature never lies. Nature is real. Humans can deceive one another, but nature is real, and the feedback from nature is instant. So I think we need to really get it right. Yes. Everyone is talking about this issue. Even if you look at America, sometimes they have denied, some things to do with global warming, but they come back to the reality that we really must fix this thing for us, for the generations to survive.
All right. Yeah. Yes. Juma, you come from, from the Global Peace Foundation. You do a lot of things concerning communities, yes. and, of course, empowering people. At the same time, I mean, so what really is the solution going forward? What is it that needs to be done, with finality, so that this issue does not really keep recurring, aside from if we remove the politics from it?
Yes. I think, this calls for proper planning on the side of government. We must identify how many evictees we are looking at, be it 2,000, and we need a proper plan. Before they are evicted or as they evicted, they need to be immediately resettled. Or if they are waiting for resettlement, the government must by now have put in a contingency plan that they are being evicted, they are going into this camp, where they're taken care of, yes, yes. as they wait for resettlement. All right. I think, Kenya has a lot of land. I think government owns, a big chunk of land. Yes, yes. All it needs is, good planning and, just secure alternate piece of land and let these people go there. And Betty, the way we do our things, also, the world will judge us, on how we treat our people. How civilized are we as a nation? All right. Even the way we carry out these evictions, the humanity, with the human rights, yes, yes. We will show the world that we are a civilized nation. But if you're just doing them, sending, policemen to be able to evict this, to beat these people, then it is worse than even trying to achieve what we plan to achieve. So I think, we need a proper planning. The CS for environment, the office of the president needs to come up with a proper contingency plan so that these people are being evicted, but they are immediately resettled. Right. We don't want a situation where that will again lead to an issue of IDPs. Yes.
Do you think that the people, the people who are living in this particular, land have been made well aware of, just the impact of them living there and the impact that it has on, of course, the environment? Have they been made well aware so that even as they're being evicted or resettled, which would be the best, case scenario, they actually understand why this is happening?
I don't think so. And this calls for civic education. And of course, they know. They know that their being there is actually interfering with the ecosystem. But there are politicians who actually deny that that is not true. And that's why they tell them, okay, you go back to where you came from. So I think even as we do this, we need to intensify more civic education so that these people know that it is in their own benefit. If not their own benefit, but in the benefit of the future generation, the future grandchildren will benefit, if we are able to preserve the ecosystem. So, so politicians always look at political mileage, even denying the obvious.
All right. And it's so interesting. Let's also just take a look at some sentiments echoed by Raphael Tuju. That was yesterday.
You talk about an individual politician going out there and talking at variance with the executive position that we have on that area. Those are his opinions. But as far as the executive is concerned, our script is the same. But somebody from the legislature even if he's the leader of majority in the legislature, in the Senate, his position, if it's at variance with the position of the executive, the position of the executive automatically prevails.
There are no plans to replace the leader of majority in the Senate. Our leader in the Senate is Kipchumba Murkomen. We have no problems with him being the leader in the Senate. Senate work is different from politics, and I think you should know we are not obsessed with positions and titles. Leadership is not positions. Leadership is what you do with the position you have. So those who are saying we need to replace him, I don't think it has come to that. We just want for him to recalibrate his ways, to know that he must first hold true fidelity to the cause of Jubilee.
All right, Sakaji there. Finally, as we wind up, Daniel, how do you then separate, how do the politicians, because at the end of the day, they're the people who are representing, the same people who are facing, this eviction. How then do they balance between, creating solutions and also political rhetoric?
Now, this is the biggest problem we have in Kenya because, there's no clear line. And of course, some of these politicians, for example, you saw the other day when we had the sugar issue, they had to be the one to investigate, to find out solutions to these problems. I am sure the Mao issue also, there is a committee in the Senate or in Parliament that dealt with this issue. So, but as I told you, there is what they would do in the Senate or in Parliament. But when they go back to talk to the electorate, they want to talk, to say something different. And that's what I saw from Murkomen. Murkomen that I saw yesterday talking to the people in Mao is different from, the kind of, Murkomen that I would see in the Senate. When they're in the Senate, they, speak differently, but when they're talking to the people, it looks like they want to reinvent themselves politically. They want to gain political mileage from it. So the Murkomen that I saw in the Mao is one that is actually using that for his own political mileage. But I want to, plead with Murkomen. He's a young man. He's a good person. Just, accept the advice from his peers in Jubilee. This is his own fellow Jubilee members telling him to recalibrate how he goes about it.
Interesting. Daniel Juma, thank you so much for your time. He's the Executive Director of the Kenyan chapter of the Global Peace Foundation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.